Hi, I'm Jim Fielding, and welcome to Jim Fielding and Friends, a podcast where we explore what it truly means to live and lead with authenticity, kindness, and impact. Each episode brings together leaders who inspire me, people who lead with heart, break barriers, and redefine success. If you're looking for honest, insightful, and thought-provoking conversations, pull up a chair. Let's talk.
We can choose who we love. Nobody's letting go. Chosen family.
Okay, well, hello, kind and beautiful people. Welcome to this episode of Jim Fielding and Friends. This is a special one because we're going to have a professional conversation about some very important topics, but it is friend-based. So I met Mr. Chris Glass, our guest today, as part of the book tour. That's what I think has been so interesting about all this world that the book opened up. Soho House, where Chris works, and he'll tell you about that, has been a great supporter of the book. Chris himself has been a great supporter of the book. But he is based in Europe, but flew to Atlanta for our book event, which was I'm not just saying it because you're sitting here, it was one of the best book events we had. And it was for the Atlanta Soho House membership at a really cool hotel. It was the first book event that Joe attended, my fiance, which was also made it unique because I had been on the tour a while and he had never been able to go to any of the book events. But why the event went so well is because you actually read the book. You actually read the book. And no offense against anybody who interviewed me and did not read the whole book. I get it. Chris actually had read the whole book because as he was interviewing me, he would reference, well, on page 147, you said blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I did? And he got his Oprah moment, as I said. He made me cry, I think twice in the interview. So when I was thinking about podcast guests, I was like, I have to get Chris. And, we're coming to you recorded live in New York. This just worked out so well because you happened to be in New York and you texted me and I was like, oh my God, I need to do a podcast with you. And so here you are. So welcome.
I appreciate the warm welcome.
Oh my God, I missed
on
you.
a day that is destined to be warm in New York.
Mm-hmm.
I lived in New York many, many moons ago, so it's funny how you hit the ground and it feels familiar.
Mm-hmm.
And to your point around Atlanta, having grown up there,
Yeah.
and doing that talk with you there felt very familiar. And to your point around friends, it's familiar and it's good.
It is. Well, I think it's so rare to be our ages. I'm older than he is. That's okay. I'll own it. But to make adult friends is rare. I mean, and not easy, but you and I clicked right away. Okay, so tell them what you do at Soho House, because I teased them, but tell them what your job is.
So I joined Soho House in 2009 as the membership director for the house in Berlin. Opened that house back then in 2010. Fast forward to today, I'm the global director for diversity, equity, and inclusion for Soho House. And having been with that business for so long, there are lots of pies that I sort of get to grab and taste and spread around. But the heart of my work today is really about looking at ways that we continue to build and nurture community and culture and a sense of belonging in our houses.
Which is amazing. I mean, I love the fact that your title is still DEI. I think you're increasingly a unicorn. Chris and I have talked a lot about that in our friendship and our professional work now. And I guess that's where we should start is why, interestingly for you as an American living abroad too, with everything going on with DEI and the pushback and stuff, why is Soho House, why are you still so committed to it? I know why, but I want them to know why.
It's a moment. We are in a moment where I think individuals, communities, corporations have to take pause and take stock and think about what's really most important to them, and how that then shows up in terms of their employees, their customers, the future of their business, et cetera. And I say all that to say We are also in a moment of transition as we look at what DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion means for us, and are really leaning into the notion of culture and belonging, and all of that. And this is how we will continue to move forward, at least for the next couple of years, is very rooted in our values, our mission statement, our vision. This is who we decided to be as a company. And in many ways, I like to say that Nick Jones, our founder, when he created Soho House, we're celebrating 30 years this year. When he created Soho House 30 years ago, he was looking to create a space where folks like himself, who weren't welcome other places, could feel at home. And that really is the heart of who we are and what we do.
Yeah.
That's the heart of what hospitality is.
Yeah.
You know, that's the heart of, if you look back to the old days of what hotels were and what clubs were, they were welcoming spots for weary travelers to feel like they could come get something to nourish their bodies, but also a place to rest and to feel safe. So yeah, that's how we're responding to that moment.
It's amazing to me 30 years because was the first one. Where's the it was London, right?
Yeah,
But was
in
it,
Soho on Greek Street.
oh, it is. That's
Yeah.
12 Greek Street,
Yeah.
right? Or not 12.
Number 10 Greek
10,
Street. Yeah.
okay. But the Bath one is an old one too, right? Yeah. I mean, it's so funny because that was my first. I mean, full disclosure, I'm a member of Soho House, not because of Chris. I was a member before I met him. But my first experience was I went to a wedding at the Somerset House, I think it's called.
Babington
right?
House,
Babington
yeah.
House, yeah, in Bath. And I'm trying to think what year that was. I mean, my friends, it has to be over 20 years, so it's interesting. I know they've been married over 20 years, but I remember, and what you're saying about the Nurit, first off, is a beautiful estate, essentially, but it also had the cowshed, you know, the which is I think where the animals used to be. I actually think it was like retrofitted. But the word that always came back to me was community, what you're talking about, right? And I feel like I'm overusing that word lately, but I think it's so important. And that's the way I felt. You know, I joined in West Hollywood because I was living in LA, but it was community. And I think you guys do a great job of like the culture and the events and the education. And yes, the food's great, the entertainment's great, the community is great, but the calendar of events you guys produce is pretty amazing. What do you feel pushback in your job now? Or like what do you, from partners or vendors or anybody or?
You know what I feel? I feel, and feelings are just ideas. But things are more strenuous to get across the line these days.
Yeah.
For a variety of reasons. There is that sort of monkey on the shoulder saying, this isn't something that we're forced to do anymore. This is something that other people are saying not to do. This is something that's being debated. There is that piece that's going on. But there are also, we as a business, me as a human, all sorts of businesses out there and people out there are really concerned with their day to day. So, and I say that to say that I think in some ways the priority has shifted in terms of, what's really on fire at the moment and where do we have to pay the most attention, which is not to say that this doesn't matter, but there are other things that we need to keep a focus on to make sure that we can still hold space for these other things. If we look at what's happening politically, if we look at what's happening in terms of climate in the world, there are a lot of things that cause fear and anxiety. And I think the opportunity and the responsibility of folks in roles like mine are to say, yes, the nuts and bolts of who we are and what we talk about is still very important. But the notion for me of diversity, equity, inclusion is really about creating spaces where people feel safe. And so we can't ignore those other aspects of what's making people feel unsafe. And to fold that all into the work that I do.
Do you feel like your job has changed? Like, do you feel more of a burden or your job has changed? I know you're an American living abroad, but particularly with what's happening, here in the States, does it feel different now?
It definitely feels different, and I've been asked to spend more time here in the U.S. because of what's happening at the moment, and that's something that I'm doing because I'm told to do. I'm doing it because I recognize there's a need and a responsibility in that. Also, being an American and thinking, this is a moment where I need to come back, so to speak, and do the do. I think what's interesting for me is that, again, I spoke about fear earlier. There's this reaction to what's going on, and this this knee jerk. Wait, what do we do about this? What do we do about that? What's our stance on this? What's our stance on that? And I hope what many people learned through the last phase of this is that we can't jump to conclusions, that we do need to pause, and we need to reflect, and we need to think about what we say and do before we do it. So today, a lot of what I do is to really sort of encourage us all to take a beat, take a moment, and think.
It's one of my things I love about you as a friend, but also as a compatriot in this kind of figuring this all out is. And it is a discipline because, especially living in it, and living in Atlanta, honestly, like you could react every day. Like you literally, you could turn on your news feed and be like, "Oh my God, what now? Oh my God, what now?" And I do think what I love about your way, your professionalism and your demeanor is you can physically see yourself take a beat. Like you're very like, okay. Don't love that. However, I'm going to digest it. And I think, and before I act on it, I'm truly going to ruminate, and I'm going to be like, okay, I'm going to talk to some friends and advisors and trusted smart people. And I think it's good because, and I've been, in my speaking and in my coaching, I've been counseling a lot on that, saying, okay, I know it's not great. And I know that headline kind of sucked, but it could change in 3 days or 3 weeks, and let's not swing left and then swing right and then go back in the middle. But it's trying. It's funny. My newsletter this week was titled "The Luxury of Sleep" because I'm waking up more in the middle of the night. Like I have more personally. I have more anxiety than I've had in a long time, and I'm more anxious than I was the first time around. And for me, I'm trying to figure out with the first administration, it's also because I was working a corporate job. So I was distracted, I think, a little bit more the first time around because I had so many responsibilities. I have more time now since I'm this solopreneur. It hits me more, right?
I think the stakes are also higher this time around.
Yeah, they do feel, right? Yeah. Okay, that makes me feel better. Yeah. It feels different. And I've told people that. It felt different. The election was hard. The period between the election and inauguration was a lot of like suspense and fear. And then it became super tangible, like on January 21st. Like, honestly, like it became something you could feel. And I just feel like, through this podcast and through my writings and things, like we have to talk about that because it's mental health. And it pushed me back. I'm back in therapy. And I hadn't done therapy in a long time. I love therapy. I'm a huge proponent of mental health and tune-ups and all of that. But I literally called my old therapist, who is kind of a quasi-executive coach therapist, but in Chicago. And we're back to doing virtual coaching because I said, I need that. Like, I know I need that tune-up because I'm reacting in a way that I'm not controlling enough, right? And I don't want to go on sleeping pill. Like, it's like the American answer, right? Just I'm going to take melatonin or a sleeping pill. But I also don't want to be waking up anxious at 3 a.m. So I think it's interesting how it's manifesting. So share with us the story because you've been abroad a long time. Like you've been an American living abroad, working abroad for multinationals. Like, I don't even know the year it started.
I moved to Germany in 2001. Moved from New York to Munich in 2001.
So this is 24 years. Yeah. You're okay. So what was the driver in 2001 that you were like, I'm going to be an American that works and lives abroad? That was a decision.
Interesting. It was not in its infancy. It was not a decision, and I think had I really thought about it, I never would have done it.
So it was an impulse.
It was an opportunity.
Okay.
I was working at the time for a startup, and that many years ago, startups were a very different story than they are today.
Yeah.
It was a company called Beauty Spy that was selling niche cosmetic brands online in Europe.
God, that was the early days of
Yeah,
that.
very
Wow.
much so.
Yeah.
At a time when people would ask the question, wait, how am I going to try lipstick on a screen and trying to solve for fragrance online? The company had an office here in New York where we were doing all of our buying. Ran out of financing after a year, but had already committed to opening a shop in Munich. And there was a financial obligation to keep that shop up and going. And they asked me to come over and help them literally put products on the shelf to get the doors open in time. And I said, sure, I'll come over for 2 weeks and do that. Came back to New York with plans to start a consultancy. And after being back for a few weeks, they asked me to come again. And across 6 months, they kept asking me to come back. And each time I was there, they would say, oh, don't you want to live here? And I said, no, I live in New York. Why would I want to live in Munich? And they caught me with that question once on a really good day. I'd been on a bicycle. I'd been to a beer garden. I felt this sense of
day. One of those pretty days.
I felt this sense of freedom. I felt a sense of belonging that was contrary to what I felt in New York at the time.
Wow.
And I said, you know what? I'll give you another 6 months, and then the story of my life will be that I lived in Europe for a year.
Yeah. It's a good story.
Fast forward, I've now lived in Europe for many, many years, and then moved from Munich to Berlin when I accepted the role at Soho House, and since then have lived in lots of different countries for different reasons.
So was there a conscious decision of like, now I'm going to stay? Like, so for the first part was opportunity and chasing opportunity, but was there a moment? Was it the Soho House job?
No. Soho House didn't come until 2009.
Yeah.
Two things happened. One, I had a roommate here in New York, who, shout out to folks not present, who essentially stole the lease. And so I didn't have a place to come back to in New York. And I thought, well, there's that.
That's a sign. Yeah.
And secondly, I really was living day to day, which in this moment I realized what a luxury that was.
Totally.
I woke up one day and it had been 3 years that I'd been there.
Just happened.
And I thought, well, I have nothing to go back to, and I kind of feel good here. I'll do it for another year. And it was a series of, not committing to something more than a year that led to I'd been there for 5 years and I'd been there for 10 years.
I think that is so interesting to me because I was just talking to someone the other day about, and I think I might have even said to you, because I saw you recently, personally, like I literally said human beings can do anything for 2 years. Like literally, it goes so fast. And I know I sound like my parents when I say as you get older, time goes faster. Because I remember I used to because when you're 16 and you want to be 18 and you're 18, you want to be 21, it feels like it's forever. But 55 to 60 was like, whoosh, and now... And I literally said to somebody, like, you can do anything for 2 years. Like, if you have to move, if you have to, do a temporary job or whatever, like help take care of an elderly parent, whatever, you can do anything for 2 years.
Someone told me this recently that we were taking a walk instead of riding to dinner and then walk back home, and said they had been listening to a podcast, funny enough, recently. And the subject was youth and what keeps young people young. And one of the takeaways was that when we're younger, everything is new.
Yeah.
We're having new experiences. We're trying new things. And so we spend time in those things, unpacking them, discovering them, and enjoying them.
Yeah.
And as we get older, we fall into routine and we really push ourselves. We streamline ourselves into not stepping outside of those boundaries, which leads to complacency and sedentary lifestyles, et cetera. And so, to your point, I think the opportunity that we have to do something different, not destructive necessarily, but different.
Well, I really hope that people listening and watching this heard you say like the kind of thinking about your life in 1 year terms, because I do think that's something. If I think about a change in me, in the last 2 or 3 years, is I'm so much more committed to being in the moment, right? To being present. I keep saying I want to be a human being, not a human doing. Like that's been like this mantra of mine lately. And I just want to be in the moment. And you and I have talked about this, like we're supposed to be doing this right now. Like there's a reason you were in New York. I was here doing podcasts. Neither one of us lives here, but we're in this room having this conversation. And I'm so conscious now of being like, okay, just be here. Don't think about what you're doing later this afternoon, or don't think about your flight home tomorrow. And in corporate, like corporate gym, like a lot of the gym that people know, like, because corporate gym was 35 years, I was like the 5-year planner, like, because the business was planned in like 3 and 5 year cycles. And so you kind of planned your life in 3 and 5 year cycles. And I knew like the conferences I was going to go to, and when I was going to go to Japan, and when I was going to go to Europe, and when I was going to go to Australia. And I realized as I was getting towards the end of corporate gym, it was formulaic, to your point. Like I just was becoming robotic. Like I was good at it. I was a planner. I was successful. I had a great team around me, but I wasn't really enjoying it. And I think now I would say I plan a year. I do think a year. I think a year at a time. And I mean, there's a lot going on this year, with the wedding and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, I also plan, this, I plan because I have an incredible partner who only has so much vacation, and I use every day of his vacation. And so I have to plan for that. But because, to your point, I don't want to be old and predictable. I want to be constantly curious. I want to be a lifelong learner. I want to travel to new places. I want new experiences because I don't want to be done. And that doesn't mean I haven't shifted gears. It doesn't mean I'm not working differently. But I think that time frame discussion is so important because I'm not worrying about what I'm going to be doing when I'm 65. I'm worried about kind of to 61 now, right?
There's a huge conversation at the moment around longevity.
Yeah.
And I think one of the keys to longevity, getting good sleep, good rest, not just sleep, rest, taking care of ourselves.
Good sleep, your point.
Exactly. But also, biting off chunks that we can chew. And I'm a planner. I live by my diary.
I love that about you. Yeah, I know. That's why we're friends.
Yeah. But I also have learned to be agile. And, I can't be rigid, otherwise I'll snap. So, I have a plan and it's a roadmap. But if I need to veer off to the left, then I have time and space to do that because I'm trusting the process and trusting the system. But I think, for me, the real key is in terms of looking at longevity, in terms of looking at wellness and looking at, how we can not only sustain, but really thrive long term, is trying to take some of the fear out of life. And again, trusting that I'm where I need to be, doing what I need to do. And if I need to do something different, that will be made evident to me.
For sure.
Whether it's because I have a circle of folks around me that are going to highlight something and show me that I need to do something different, or I'm listening to my body, or I'm just, again, trusting the legacy of my life thus far and the intention that I have for my life moving forward, and knowing that those roadmaps, those blockers along the road are going to be revealed.
Yeah. I mean, you just did lesson 1 in the book. I mean, control the controllable, but leave space for the possible. I mean, you literally just did it because, and that was, I mean, the reason I made that lesson 1 is I think it's, not that I don't think all 10 lessons in the book are important, but I think it's one of the most important. And I also think I learned it late. Like, I don't think I learned that till I was probably in my mid-50s. And, part of writing the book is, no, learn this when you're in your 30s. Learn this when you're in your 20s. And I think the environment we were talking about and the political and the societal situation right now is not a controllable situation. And so I think the learning is have a plan. It's okay to be a planner. I'm a planner. I tell everybody now, I'm the 80-20 rule. 80% of my life is planned, for sure. I mean, not anally retentive planned anymore, but framework, to your point. But the 20% is where I find the magic, right? And I didn't have that before. I mean, I think, again, back to corporate Jim, I mean, he was 100% planned. I don't think there was a moment in the day that I wasn't doing something that was planned. And I started to put breaks into my calendar towards the end of corporate, but it's so different now. It's
one of the questions that I ask myself, and I've asked you this question, and I really encourage folks to ask themselves this question as often as possible. And I'll go back and talk about why I pose this, but how is this serving me? How is this serving?
Yes, it's such a filter.
So, the corporate gym that had everything regulated and set up that way, that might have served that gym.
It did.
But there's a reason that it no longer served that gym at some point. And so I say that to say, there's no one way for everyone. But I think the filter to use as we examine what's right for us and for the people we love and the people that we lead, et cetera, is how is this serving me? And if it is truly serving me, for me to thrive, for me to shine, for me to do what I'm there to do, then okay. But if it's not,
Totally.
it's worth reconsidering.
Well, I mean, I think that's when you talk about you think your job is to create these safe spaces, it's also creating a safe space for yourself. I mean, to me, that part of what you were just articulating is accept who you are. I mean, we are planners. You and I are planners. I mean, just accept it. We own that. It's nothing to be embarrassed about. And honestly, people like us because we are planners, right? And I always have to be careful when I'm doing group things, because I can become Julie, the cruise director, really easy. You know what I mean? Like, I could be like, give me your flights, and I'm doing
Not
like
Julie.
these master. That's for old people who know Julie, the cruise director. But I literally be like, give me your flights. I've arranged your car service. Like, I can be that person so easily. And my friends kind of allow me into that. And I literally have to say to people, okay, I'm not the organizer in this one. Like, I've gotten so much better about, like, I would love to travel with you. We'd love to see you at X time. Here's the details. Figure it out. Like, we'll be there. Figure it out. Let yourself in, right? But I had to let that go, like, because what would happen is I'd be Julie, the cruise director, and then I'd feel too much pressure, and then I wasn't having fun. Like, I wasn't able to let go because I was like, oh my God, is the car there to pick up George? And, did the plane land on time? And I became too maniacal about it. But again, I didn't get mad at myself. That's me. It's a control mechanism. It's why, honestly, I hired a wedding planner. Like, people think, like, oh, I'm sure Jim's playing. I'm like, no. Like, and I hired this incredible woman. Shout out to Megan at Fox and Fern Events. She'll have to give me a discount now. We hired the right person for us because, Joe. Joe is organized, but not anywhere near where I am, right? Because very few people are.
I was just
I
going to
think
say.
you're close. You're close. But she's a great buffer between us. And, like, when she sends me an email and says, I need this by Friday, like, then we do it and we move on. And I'm not worried about anything. Like, I really feel like my role in the wedding is to show up now, right? And to enjoy it because I want to be so present in that weekend, right? And I don't want to be worrying about if somebody's hotel room is there or if the food is warm or, and I think 5 years ago, I would have been different. I don't even know if I would have trusted anyone to plan.
Which says something about who you were and where you were at that time.
Totally.
But, something you just said really resonated with me. Your job, your intention for your wedding is to show up and be present. And I would encourage all of us to consider that that's our intention every day.
Yeah.
For me to show up today, to whatever is scheduled for me today, and to try and be as present as possible, and to live in the truth of those moments, whether that truth is attractive and sexy or problematic and troublesome. But
Yeah,
to
be
show
present
up,
for the ugly stuff too. You're right. No, and it's so funny because I told you the other night we went to the Kendrick Lamar and SZA concert, and we were there with a lot of friends, but we also had my niece and her, I don't know, boyfriend, whatever, person she's hanging out with. I mean, obviously a different generation. And I just kept saying, because it's so funny now when you go to concerts or live events, everybody's freaking taping them, right? And so they're like viewing them through their phone. And I literally was walking around being like, just be present. Like you have a brain, remember it, right? Now, it doesn't mean I didn't take a few pictures or a few short videos here or there just to spark the memory. But I think what you're saying is like so important because I am constantly saying to myself, just be here. You do have a memory bank. You do have gray matter. You still have little crinkles in your brain that can handle memories. And I think it's just so much more enjoyable when you do it that way. I mean, but it's amazing to me, like you're in Mercedes-Benz Stadium and like everybody's got their phone, like, everybody's like watching the concert like this, which, yeah, I don't know what you do. I wouldn't go home and watch a 2.5-hour concert on my phone, but.
I'll tell you what they do. They post it.
Yeah, exactly.
To be able to say to people, I was there, I did that.
I know, it's like the social media capital.
Yeah.
It's like currency.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've lived many different places. Like, is there, like from a vacation standpoint, is there still a place on your bucket list? Because I feel like you've been so many places.
I have been a lot of places, and to your point, I've lived in a lot of places. And that, sort of marrying or balancing living someplace and vacationing in that place, having a lifestyle that felt like I was vacationing was an aim at one point. There are some places that I go back to over and over again just because they feel like home. Ibiza is one of them. I have a couple of friends who have homes there. So I get to unpack and let my proverbial hair down when I'm there. And it feels familiar.
Yeah.
We go to our favorite places, we cook at home.
Yes.
But I've given myself the challenge this year of also trying to go to places that I've never been.
New.
So to have the balance of something familiar and comfortable, but also something very new. I lived in Johannesburg at one point, so traveling throughout the African continent was exciting and educational and wonderful. So there are a lot of destinations still on the continent that I want to go see. Senegal is high on the list, Ivory Coast. I want to go back to Kenya. And then, Latin America, I'm going to Mexico City in a few weeks, which I'm really excited about.
Yeah, it's a great city.
So there are some places that are, top of the list that everyone else talks about that I've been fortunate enough to go to, but then lots of places that, that I just want to discover something new and something. I was talking about this with a friend yesterday. There was a time when you went on holiday and you went to that place because that was the place that you could get that thing and you could get it nowhere else, whether it was lace in Portugal or sheets and towels in Turkey or spices in this place. And so I'm trying to go back to a bit of that, even though these things are widely available.
It's so funny you say that because I was thinking about, even when I used to travel for work, in the 90s, particularly when I was at Gap, before the internet, the internet was around, but before really e-commerce, like where I do remember, like you would go to certain countries and you go to certain stores because they were like, there was a certain pair of shoes or a certain belt or a certain spice, to your point, or a certain thing that they were known for, lace, linen, leather in Italy, right? Like, and in a weird way, I was thinking about this lately with like the tariffs and the, my God, all this stuff going on. But in a weird way, as we've been traveling, Joe and I have been traveling a lot, like, we were just in Japan. Joe wanted knives. Like he wanted a knife set from Kyoto. Like he did all of his research online, and researched all these different places. But we got off that ship and like got in a taxi and I was like, where are we going? Because I had no idea where we were. And it was like this obscure alley in Kyoto, and he weaved our way through the people, and he knew he wanted to go to that knife shop, and he got that knife set. And it reminded me almost of like the 90s, because even though he had researched online, still we walked into the shop, they spoke English, thank God, and it was such an experience buying those knives and then getting them home. And now I see them in the kitchen, and it brings back all those memories. But it's funny you say that, because he was like, if we're buying sushi. He wanted sushi knives. Like he wanted, official. He's like, we have to buy those in Kyoto.
But to the point around social media and why folks are taking those videos and sharing them,
Yeah.
for me, this is that sort of parallel. You now have a story to tell
For sure.
when guests come over.
Yeah.
You have memories connected to those knives. You're building memories together, and that's that currency for me.
It is,
And
it
for me,
is.
it's a more grounded currency. It's a richer currency.
It is. And I love what you say about like building stories together, because I'm also now going to hold it over him. Like, why don't you make the sushi? Because you bought those beautiful knives and they're pretty, but I thought I was going to get some sushi out of this. But no, I mean, it is. We're building memories together because, I mean, we're coming up on 5 years, but I had a lifetime of memories before him. So I do like building new memories with him. And it was so important to him. Like, to me, it wouldn't have been high on my list because I'm not really going to become a sushi chef, but it was fun to do it together. But when you were talking about that, like the lace in Portugal and stuff, it's like, in a weird way, I almost feel like that. Even though, of course, we could have found sushi knives online. I mean, of course, and had them delivered. It is more tangible and more.
But also, not for nothing, the story would be, half as interesting.
No, and I don't even know if I tell the story. Like if he just
yeah.
if he just ordered sushi knives off Amazon, I'm not sure I'd be telling you that story. So probably I wouldn't. Maybe when you came over, you're like, those are nice knives.
And I would appreciate the story, but I would appreciate it so much more, and I do
Yeah.
appreciate it so much more knowing
Yeah.
again where you all got them and how you got them.
Okay, so Joe, when you watch this episode, we got to plan a sushi night. I'm just thinking out loud.
And I want the invite.
Yeah, no, we got to do it when Chris is in town. We'll find out. He is a planner. We talked about it, so we'll know when he's going to be in Atlanta.
Exactly.
So yeah, we got to put those knives to work. So. So let's just go to the year, because we just talked about only planning for a year. You talked about like some of the personal places you want to travel. You said work-wise, you're spending more time in the U.S. Like, what do you see in the next year for what you're doing work-wise?
A big part of what I'm doing at the moment, and this is a continuation of some things that started last year, but it feels like it's even more important at the moment, is really kneading, with a K, community. Creating events where people of like mind can come together, can feel seen, can feel celebrated, can feel safe. Encouraging folks to take that moment and to recreate moments like that themselves, using the spaces that we have available, considering the folks that don't know that those spaces are available to them, that those opportunities are available to them, and to be sure that we're folding them into what we're doing. And then also, personally, and this shows up a bit professionally as well, is encouraging all of us to consider ways that we can be activists in our own right. What matters most to you? What do you stand for? What do you have at your disposal to uphold those values, to re-cement those values? And if it's a conversation like the one that you and I are having, if it is the way you lead your team, if it is the way that you bring people together, I spoke to you about this a few months ago. I think this moment will call, as the civil rights movement did back in the day, for covert action where people have to go behind closed doors and convene because it's safe, and because you can filter who's coming in and know that you're in good company, so to speak. But I think creating spaces, again, myself and my home, in the spaces that I have access to, for people to come together and plot greatness as we move forward, as John Lewis would reference, to make good trouble. And to support each other in doing that. And we live in a time and space where we have access to technology that propels messaging far and wide and quickly. So I think it's also looking at how we utilize what's available to us today.
Oh my God, Chris, I love that so much. And I think the ATL in you comes out, like when you bring up John Lewis. And I've been Bayard Rustin obsessed, right? Because I think like he's such a hidden figure in our movement. And I love that John Lewis. I love Bayard Rustin when he talks about being angelic troublemakers, like his And I think living in Atlanta, it's only 4 years for me as a white man in Atlanta, but like you're in the center of the birthplace of civil rights. And, we have the museums and there's markers everywhere. And I do think your challenge on figuring out this past, covert resistance, like we're resisting. I mean, the representation matters thing. I think everything we've talked about today is about you're representing, I'm representing, like representation matters, and creating those spaces where, if we have to go a little bit underground, if we have to go back almost to that speakeasy mentality, we did it. I mean, our community did it. And if you look at our history of the lavender movement, the 40s, the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, 70s, 80s, the things that our community has lived through, the Red Scare, the lavender movement, the AIDS crisis, like we've done it. We have survived, and we keep coming out, and many times we come out stronger, even though it's hard what we go through. But I think that's such a great challenge for all of us. And you said it, like what I can do in my personal space, what I can do in my professional space, that's huge. I think that's a really good challenge for all of us. Okay, we have to wrap up soon. So I'm
already.
Ask, I know it's gone so fast. Thank God for the big clock in here. But so I will let you end, because you've done so many Chris Glass moments for me. But like, what's the one big thought you want to leave our listeners and viewers with today? You kind of did it, but like the one thing.
I'm going to be Chris and be extra and give you two.
Okay, two. I get two Chris's.
And one is a reference to the book, and it's I live my life this way. It is hugely inspired by my mother, but this notion to leave. Shout out to Gwen. To leave your corner of the world better than when you came into it. I've had this conversation with my mom in so many different ways, and it is very much, and I'm going to try not to start tearing up as I say this.
Oh,
but
I
it
want
is
my
very
Oprah
much,
moment. Keep going.
Okay.
Gwen. I'm just going to keep saying her name.
But this is, it was very much her philosophy in bringing kids into the world, that she wanted to create a better opportunity than the one that she had, and encourage us to dream bigger, and to plan bigger, and to bake bigger than she ever could have. And so that is, my wish for so many people is to make your world, make your corner of the sky better when you leave it than when you came into it. And that touches on the second point, which is once you've been able to get your bag, to make space, to come up, to arrive, whatever you want to call it, go back and get someone else and help them make that journey as well. And mentorship can look like lots of different things, but I think the key, especially as we try to bridge a gap in terms of how younger folks respond to this moment versus the experience that older folks have responding to this moment. There are things that worked in the past that will no longer work again, but there are things that worked in the past that really did work, and for good reason. So if it's about, again, activism, going back and getting someone, but if it's also just about carving out a future that is the future that our ancestors fought for and believed in, the values that they stood for, and that I certainly hold very dear. I want to go find someone and share those things with them, and give them access to. I say this, and I don't say it lightly. I am not more beautiful. I'm not smarter. I'm not more gifted than someone else. I've been given opportunity. Because someone saw something in me. And said, I'm going to lift you up on my shoulders and give you scope to see over the edge of that wall.
Yeah, they believed in you.
Yeah.
I mean, I love that. That's such a beautiful way to end, because, I mean, let's face it, we live a privileged life. We know that. And I think we have a responsibility to use that privilege to help others. I do. I think that's part of the reasons you and I have bonded. I think why we bonded so quickly, why we spend so much time talking together, because we feel that in each other, that we truly, you emanate it. It like comes out of your pores that you've introduced me to something. Like I think of some of the people that you've introduced me to in the less than 2 years that we've known each other, who are people you've mentored or found in the community. And you're like, this person has a message. This person has a vision that needs to be shared. And so I am going to introduce him, her, them to you. With no expectations, with no, Jim, do this, you must do this, you must attend this, but just, I'm going to create the space. To your point, I think you're a space creator. It's unbelievable. So that is a perfect way to end. Thank you so much for being here. Thank the fates for bringing us both to New York.
Thank you for doing
on the
this.
Same day. Oh my gosh, it's...
And thank you for having me.
Oh my God, it's such a privilege. I couldn't imagine. We do this all the time by Zoom anyway. It just feels like we just did one of our Zoom calls when you're in Portugal. But no, and thank you. I mean, thank you for the friendship. Thank you for caring about the world, because you do, and you are making a difference. Thank you, Gwen, for birthing him. We must another call out to her, because there's a reason he's here. And yeah, let's just keep doing it.
Absolutely.
We have work to do.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Of course.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us today. If you enjoyed this show, make sure you leave a review, subscribe, and follow us on your favorite podcast platform. We appreciate you and look forward to seeing you soon.
Choose who we love. Nobody's letting go. Chosen.